Good morning, Monday morning. This is the video that is going to make or break me, if you will. And I'll see you after I put this video out. I have an average number of people that watch a certain amount of videos, and let's see who watches after this video. Because I say this. In the book of Revelation, no one argues that there are 7 seals, there are 7 trumpets, and there are 7 vials. That is standard. That's clear all through the book of Revelation. You can see those 7 different judgments, if you will, happening upon the earth. And what most people teach is that these are successive events, meaning the 7 seals are opened over a period of time, and most people teach that the tribulation is about 7.5 years. The first half isn't bad, the second half is really bad. So that the first 7 seals open over a period of time, maybe up to the halfway point, whatever that is. And then the 7 trumpets happen after that. So another, let's say, 3 years. And then the wrath of God, the 7 vials, is poured out at the end. And no one argues that, and I don't argue that. What I'm teaching and what I believe the Bible is showing, based on Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and based on Revelation and how verses line up with each other, is that the trumpets happen and the vials happen within the 7 seals, right? Because we saw a couple videos ago where we saw the 6th seal and what's happening with the 6th seal tying in with the death of the 2 witnesses and the catching away at the church at the 7th trumpet. Okay, so over in chapter 11, we see that same type of event. Those things that happened at the 6th seal are happening right before the wrath of God. Now, we saw in a couple videos ago where I talked about that, right, with the 6th seal opening, and at the end, the great man says in verse 17 of chapter 6, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who shall be able to stand? So we do know that after the 6th seal is going to come the wrath of God. And we're going to look at that when we get to Revelation chapter 14. And then 15 and 16 is the wrath of God. It's 2 chapters. And then chapter 7, which was the last video covered, which is the sealing of the 144,000, and then some rewards and people in heaven. So let's get on to chapter 8. I'm going to tell you what I believe. I believe not only is the first seal open, which started in September of 2020, I believe each seal is a year over those 7 years, and that the second seal opened, which is the red horse, is what horse we're experiencing now, which is given a great sword, and he's taking peace from the earth, and he's causing men to kill one another, which I think ties in with Matthew, Mark, and Luke, talking about the beginning of sorrows. There'll be wars and rumors of wars. There'll be earthquakes in diverse places. All those things that happen in the first part of the tribulation, what Jesus taught about, and we're taught up until, and we see that in the first couple horses, and those are the first couple seals. So now let's, chapter 8, we're going to have the 7th seal open, right? We had a break, and then John went backwards a little bit, or added something a little different, and it appears somewhere different. We're going to see that in other places as we go forward in Revelation. So now we're going to come back to the seals. Again, because we can't read the prophecy that was sealed up by Daniel, and I believe that's a lot of what's included in the Revelation is Daniel's prophecy. And so we can't read that prophecy. John can't be exposed or see that prophecy and the things that are going to happen until the seals are open, right? A couple videos ago, I showed that if the prophecy is sealed, the book is sealed, and you have to open those seals. So let's go on. I'm nervous. I know what I believe. I think it's clear. And this is the point where you're going to have to pray and ask God is if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And I do encourage feedback. Chapter 8, verse 1. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. So the seal is opened, and there's silence in heaven. Because something that hasn't been around for 3,000 years. There's a book. Remember, that prophecy was a book, and it's been sealed since Daniel. This is a serious, the 7th seal is open. There is no going back at this point. I believe. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. So we saw those angels, and again, we're going to see them later. These are the angels that mete out the judgment. So John sees that. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. And there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayer of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. Now let's see what the judgment is of the 7th seal. And the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So that is the judgment, right? We saw the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, even though that word never appears in Scripture, right? We have the first 4 seals, the 4 horses. And then the 5th seal, we see the martyrs, those that are being martyred. And then the 6th seal, which is the cataclysmic, earth-changing events taking place. And now we have the 7th seal. The angel fills the censer and he casts it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. Well, where do we see that? Let's go over to Revelation chapter 16, 18. So we're going to get there, but chapters 15 and 16 are dealing with the 7 vials. We're going to look at chapter 14. When we get to 14, you're going to see the throne. You're going to see the harvesting of the grapes. You're going to see the harvesting. You're going to see them pressed out, the winepress of God, and the vials are filled with the wrath of God. In chapters 15 and 16 are the 7 vials being poured out on the earth. In verse 17 of chapter 16, it says, "And the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, 'It is done.'" When Christ was on the cross, it is finished. For the work of salvation was complete when Christ died on the cross. And he says, it is finished. Now we have the 7th vial, the last. This is the end, being poured out on the earth. And the angels, and there's and from the throne, a voice from the throne saying, "It is done." It's over. This age, everything is complete. It is done. Verse 18, "And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great." Go back to chapter 8, verse 5. "And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake." And there were voices and thunders and lightnings. There was a great earthquake. Same words. The 7th seal, this is the 7th seal, being opened, corresponds with the wrath of God and the completion of the wrath of God. 15 and 16. Same exact wording, except for the word great. An earthquake in verse 5, mighty earthquake in verse 18, 16, 18. That's the 7th seal corresponding with the wrath of God. The 6th seal is over. We saw that over in chapter 6. The great men say, "Now comes, and for the great day of his wrath is come." At the end of the 6th seal, before the opening of the 7th seal, the rich men and the mighty men, they know what's coming. Chapters 15 and 16, the wrath of God is being poured out. That is the 7th seal. Completed, everything's completed in chapter 8 of verse 5 and chapter 16, verse 18. There's other things that we're going to read about that happen in those 7 years. That's where I'm different. You have to study that out. That is what I postulate is different, is that the seals are a table of contents. I've said it a dozen times if I've said it once. We see the final seal being opened in chapter 8. We do see this now, the prophecy, right? John is covering what's happening with the prophecy. The 7 trumpets are prepared. Now, I can understand where people say, well, see, the 7th seal is open, and now we're going to have the 7 trumpets. Well, let's go and read what the 7 trumpets do, and let's see if that makes sense, right? Because we can see that there's a cutaway from chapter 6 to chapter 8 to chapter 16. We can see a tie dealing with the end, with the 7th seal, the 7 vials, and the wrath of God. So you're either with me or you're not. If that made sense or not, you have to study it out. Verse 6. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Now this is the prophecy. What I believe, this is what the prophecy is. This is Daniel's prophecy. This is what Daniel saw. This is what was sealed in the book. Remember what I said, you couldn't read the prophecy until the 7 seals were broken, opened. Let's take a breath. It's been a while, so there's silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. Very unique turn of phrase. So now let's see what's going on. We go back, if you will, to the beginning. We couldn't read what was in the prophecy until the 7th seal was opened. You couldn't sneak a peek. You couldn't get in there. It's not like a computer and you can dive ahead or a movie and fast forward it. You had to open the 7 seals. And then John deals with the 7th seal, tying it in with the 7 vials with the same wording. Chapter 8, verse 5, and chapter 16, verse 18. So he's showing you the tie. That this is a future event. He's just giving you a hint. Just like we had hints of the trumpets, we have hints of the vials through the seals. Verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and there were cast upon the earth, and the 3rd part of trees was burnt up, and all green gas was burnt up. So I've postulated that the fires that have been on the earth for the last couple years is fulfilling this, and all green grass burnt up. You can go and watch geoengineering videos, and Dan Withington and all these people, they'll say that what they're doing to the environment has killed and burned all the grass, that the soil has been destroyed around the earth. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just presenting that. But burning the grass up, it would grow right back. Burning the grass is good for the soil. But this is a judgment, and it just says, and I can show you, if you go to the 2 preachers, folks, I can't admonish you enough to go watch the 2 preachers and watch their videos that come out once and twice a week. And they will show you the hail and fire falling upon the earth, all over the earth. Hundreds of videos from around the earth, hail the size of tennis balls, destroying everything all over the earth. You don't see it on CNN or Fox. It happens every day that this is happening. And 1/3 of the trees are burning up on the earth. Verse 8, and the 2nd angel sounded as it were a great mountain burning with fire, and was cast into the sea, and the 3rd part of the sea became blood, red tide. Go look and see how much of the sea right now is red tide. And the 3rd part, in verse 9, and the 3rd part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the 3rd part of the ships were destroyed. Go and research and see how much of the fish population is killed in the last couple of years and recently. And go look up fish kills, and you'll see millions upon millions of fish all over the earth in hatcheries and in the open ocean. There are square miles. If I had technology, I'd put the links here, but I don't. So I'm going to challenge you to research for yourself. But I can see that the fish have been destroyed. Now people want to make this verse, because if you believe that the 7 seals open and now the 7 trumpets, and because the 6th seal is an earth-changing cataclysmic event, and the 7th seal is even worse, then you've got to make this trumpets more than what they say. The first trumpet sounded, not a single person is injured, it says. We're going to see later where people are killed and percentages of people killed by the trumpets. But whatever happens in this first trumpet isn't killing people. It's just destroying the trees. It's a warning. What are trumpets? Trumpets are a warning to prepare you for what's coming, for the battle that's coming, or to retreat, or whatever the sound of the trumpet is. These are warnings, and we know that they're warnings because we're going to see that when, after the 4th trumpet sounds, that an angel goes and says, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't get woes with the first 4 trumpets, and you're going to see why. And so people want to say that this second trumpet in verse 8, second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. The third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. We're going to find out with the 5th trumpet that that's 5 months, and the 6th trumpet is a year, a day, a month, and an hour. I've said it before. Americans and most people on the earth today have a 30-second attention span. And if we're like cats with a little laser light, they're just going to chase it. Wherever the shiny object is, we follow after. Again, if the seals are a year, and we know that one of the trumpets is 5 months, and one of the trumpets is a year, a month, a day, and an hour, then you can assume, you can postulate and see that the trumpets it's not a day. It's something that's happening over a period of time. It doesn't say that something has to happen and all the trees burn up on the same day. Look over a period of months and see how many forest fires are happening all over the earth where trees are burning up. From pole to pole in northern hemispheres, it's happening all over in every continent, wildfires, destroying everything over a period of time, right? Just like the first seal was open with the white horse is still operating. And then the second seal is opened, and that red horse will operate. And then when the black horse operates, the white one's still going to be doing its thing, subduing the earth. And the second one's still going to be doing its thing, taking peace and causing men to kill each other. And then when the third horse happens and there's hyperinflation and a shortage of food and the rebalance of the that one's still going to be operating when the 4th seal opens, and that horse, that pale horse and that death rider, and hell follows with it. And you're going to see that when we get to it, where that person, hell, isn't on the horse, is in charge of the 5th trumpet. So that'll be my second clue as to what I believe and why I believe the trumpets are already sounding and that the second trumpet is sounding. Because the mountains burning with fire are all the volcanoes that are taking place. People will teach that this is a nuclear bomb or something, or some mountain falling. It just says great mountain burning with fire, a volcano cast into the sea, reaching the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood. Right? So it's causing red tides. It's becoming bloody. It's causing death. And then the ships were destroyed. Now, I don't know about you, if you believe it or not, but I can tell you right now, there's a reason why these ports, we don't have supply chains. They can say all they want that all these ships are still operating, but I can tell you right now, they're not. Ports are closed. They can't unload. There's supposedly these ships are just floating out in the ocean. Commerce is not happening. You can just say, Brother Sean, you're stretching it. I just looking at it and saying, it's not logical. Everything's over, right? We're 2 years out. And you're telling me the ports still can't operate and they still can't get ships and they can't, something's not right there, right? And it just says the ships were destroyed. They're not working. They're not operating. They're not destroyed. If my business is destroyed, if my pizza business gets destroyed, it doesn't mean that something destroys the pizza oven. It just means the business was destroyed. People just, I've known restaurants that have had bugs in them, right? And those businesses are destroyed and they never come back. The building's still there. Those people are still there, but the business has been destroyed. The name has been destroyed. Verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. This is the first trumpet sound that's causing men to die. We know with the fourth seal that 25% of the world is killed. With sword, hunger, death, and beasts of the earth. This star falls and hits fresh water. Wormwood is an herb. It's a deadly herb. It's a deadly, but this is a star that falls. One star falls and it hits fresh water. And it turns the water bitter, that many men die. Now, this is where I say what people teach about the seven seals and then the seven trumpets and then the seven vials cannot possibly happen. Because if you read, right, in chapter 6 with the sixth seal, that the sun's black, the moon's blood, and the stars of heaven are fallen to the earth in the sixth seal. Now let's see what the fourth seal says, and we'll finish up here. And the fourth angel sounded, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars. Well, there's no stars left if the sixth seal has come down. The sun's already black as sackcloth, and the moon is already as blood. But the stars are fallen. People will say, well, just because the sun has become black, a third of it can be smitten. So a third of the sun that's already not giving light, that's not logical, folks. But even if you say that the sun and moon can be fulfilled separate from the sixth seal, it's impossible because it says the stars of heaven fell upon the earth. Now we see a third part of the stars are just smitten. Right? It says, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars. So they're not even falling to the earth here. They're just smitten. They're darkened somehow. Could it be a cloud over the earth? I don't know. It just says they're smitten. So as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. So there's going to be a third part of the day that's you're going to lose. So if you just say that 12 hours and 12 hours, the equinox, right, which just happened just now, we have 12 hours of daylight, 7 to 7. So a third part of that, 4 hours. So from 7 in the morning till 11 in the morning, there'll be no sun. But there'll be no moon or stars either. And then a third part of the night, third part of the moon won't. So for 4 hours, the moon won't shine. And the third part of the stars, whenever they come out for 4 hours, you won't see those stars. They're smitten, they're hidden. It'll affect the world. But it's not as cataclysmic as what happened in seal number 6. Impossible. Verse 13. And I behold and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. So now we're going to get the next three trumpets are the fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpet are tough. Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth for the next three trumpets. We're here for this. This is 4 trumpets. We don't go up until the 7th trumpet. But we know that the sixth seal, we know that we go up at the sixth seal. We know that. We know that from the book of Acts when Peter's quoting, and we know that from Amos and Joel. We know that when this is a marker. The sixth seal is a marker. But we also know that in chapter 11 and verse 15, we know that when the last trumpet sounds, we know that's a marker. We know that when Paul teaches in 1 Corinthians 15, 51, and 52, and 1 Thessalonians 5, 13 through 18, or 4, 13 through 18, we know that that's a marker. We know that we go up. The blessed hope, the catching away of the church happens at the last trumpet. We know that. So those are the first four trumpets. I believe that we're in the second trumpet. I also believe that there was a small break. I think the first trumpet didn't start sounding right away because Ezekiel talks about, and maybe I'll show that in the next video, that is, and go search it out if you like. Ezekiel talks about 2,300 days for the prophecy to be fulfilled. So when the first trumpet sounds until it is done, that we read in chapter 16, verse 18, it's done at the end of the wrath of God. Ezekiel teaches that's 2,300 days to fulfill the prophecy of Daniel. That's 6 years. It's 6.3 years. So it's 6 years and, if you will, 4 months. That means there was 8 months from the beginning of the tribulation until the sounding of the first trumpet, which would have been in the spring of 2021, all the great fires. Now, I don't know how long the trumpets last. I only know that the fifth one is 5 months, and I know the sixth one is a year, month, a day, and an hour. So I'm going to assume, and I can show you, and we're going to see when we get to the fifth trumpet, which we're going to look at in tomorrow's video. The fifth trumpet is clearly tying in with the fourth and fifth seals. Because the leader, the king of the beasts that come out during the fifth trumpet, they have a leader, an angel, that's an angel over them, Apollyon, a Babnon, which is it is called, it just says hell followed with him. That angel that leads in the fifth trumpet, that angel shows up during the breaking of the fourth seal in that year. So in the year when the Antichrist is doing his thing, that is going to be when this fifth trumpet sounds. That period of time. So I do believe that the first 4 trumpets need to take place in the first 3.5 years. And then sometime during or right after the fourth seal, so, between 3 and 4 years, is going to be the fifth trumpet. And that'll go on for 5 months. And that'll probably bring us in, and then you're going to have the martyrdom in the sixth seal, which is going to be tying in with the sixth trumpet. And then you're going to have the seventh trumpet, and that's the 2 witnesses. So that's what we have coming. So anyway, those are the first 4 trumpets. Only one of them has many men dying. But we clearly have massive casualties in the first 6 seals. So do things heal, get better, and then we go? It doesn't make sense, folks. Hopefully you're following along. Hopefully that makes sense to you. You can see, though, the key, I think, to understanding it is chapter 8, verse 5, tying in with chapter 16, verses 18, which is the end, right? Because that's what it says. In 16:18, it says, or 17, and the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." it's done. At the 7 vials, it's done. And it's the same wording, 16, 17, and 18, those verses 17 and 18, tied in with chapter 8 and verse 5. That's where I'm different, folks. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully if you can see that, if you see, Sean, you're completely wrong and off base, and show me why, according to Scripture, why you think it's 7 seals and then the 7 trumpets and then the 7 vials, I'm more than willing to listen. But if not, this is what the Lord has showed me through study, through prayer over the last couple of years. To me, I'm logical. I love numbers, and they all line up. I've been lining up all the verses. I appreciate your time. If you don't, it's not. That's what I have, right? That's where I'm different. That's what I'm offering. And I'm trying to. Again, why do I do this? Is if you're not saved, and I know people send these videos out to those that may not be saved or born again. If you can't look back and see a time where you believed in your heart and confessed with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, if you're offended when I say and talk about the blood of Christ, then you're not saved, and you need to get born again. You need to get saved, right? Those are the terms that are used. You have to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord. For with the heart, inside, man believeth unto righteousness, not his own righteousness. I'm as filthy rags, but the righteousness of Christ, that Christ is righteous, and he's pure and he's holy. And then with my mouth, confession is made unto salvation. Lord, save me. That's salvation, folks. You have to examine your heart, and there's got words come out. It's through the preaching of the cross that men are saved. So if you're not saved, I hope you get saved so that you can escape certain things that are coming. If you are saved and you're born again, then I'm doing this to encourage you, because the times are going to get harder. God is not obligated, and I've shown that he is not forced to give you all the lusts of your flesh that you think that you're entitled to. Right? Food and raiment we're to be content with. But we're to count our lives as nothing, as dung. I count all things as dung to win the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus. That's what Paul said. Right? Whether naked or poor or hungry or beaten or imprisoned, I rejoice. That's the marks of a believer. Those are the marks of a Christian. This easy life that we live in this country as believers, we think is owed and is a blessing because we support certain things, and that's not so. What we count as blessings and what we count as things from God, I guarantee you, are not from God. Genetically modified food is not from the Lord. It's not. It's man-made in a laboratory. God didn't invent the car. God just has mercy on you when you drive the car. Electricity in the house is God just has mercy. It's if you think about, the wires all around you, and these are not. I'm glad I have these things at times. I don't even see the value of a refrigerator as being a blessing and storing old food in there. Right? That's just not. But we do it, and I do it. But a lot of this stuff is not from the Lord. Right? Because you get an unemployment or a pension check or something from the government, it's not from God. Right? It's something that the men of the earth developed and tricked you so that you wouldn't labor with your hands all the days of your life. And that's what we're commanded to do. We're commanded to till the soil. And Satan has gone about trying to get us not to do those things. Those things are for our blessing. Those things are for our health, is tilling the soil and getting back into the earth, right? In agriculture and raising animals, and we can understand more of the scripture. I'm not saying the other things are evil. There are some things that are evil. There are things from the devil, and there's things happening on the earth that are from the devil. But for those that are saved, I'm telling you, there's coming a time where you're not going to be able to participate in these programs without receiving a mark in your right hand or in your forehead. God's going to send a strong delusion so that they believe a lie who take pleasure in unrighteousness. That's talking about lost folks, people. I know people that are saved and born again that take pleasure in unrighteousness. And they're believing a lie. They're believing that everything's okay. And they're going to take the mark of the beast. and they're going to have their name blotted out of the book of life. That gift is going to be given back. I know that's hard from once saved, always saved, folks, but I can show you clearly in Revelation chapter 3 and then Revelation chapter 18 where people have their name blotted out of the book of life. Their name is written and then it's blotted out. They were born again and saved and recorded in the book of life, and then it's blotted out. It's not just for ordinary trips and falls. When you take that mark, and I guarantee you there are going to be believers that are going to take that mark for whatever reason, because they take pleasure in unrighteousness, and they're going to believe the lie that's going on. So I'm admonishing believers through these videos that you're in the tribulation, and the woe, woe, woe is still coming. Prepare yourself spiritually. Prepare yourself through prayer and fasting. Prepare yourself by reading the scripture and memorizing it. Prepare yourself. The physical is a secondary part. I prepare physically on earth so I can help those. What did Christ always do? He always fed them physically first, and then he fed them spiritually. If someone shows up at my house that hasn't eaten in 3 days, and I tell them, well, just trust Christ, he'll send a raven with your food, and their kids haven't eaten in a week, folks, that's not good. That's not biblical. Put clothes on their back. You put food in their belly. You warm them up. You put a roof over their head or a shelter over their head, and then you tell them about the love of Christ. That's what we're commanded to do. That is why I do what I do. And you that have the means should be preparing to help those that are lost. We all have family that are lost and dying and going to hell. And they may show up at your doorstep. Are you prepared to meet their physical needs? And then when you meet their physical needs, you can offer to them the blood of Christ so that they can be saved. It's the only reason I do what I do. I know where I'm going. It'd be a lot easier to go to the FEMA camp and have my head cut off. That's the easy. And there's great rewards for that. But I got a lot of lost family. And I want to be able to help them. I want them to have eternal life with Christ. Those that are close to me, those that I care about, those that I love. I want to be able to put food in their belly, clothes on their back, roof over their head, and a place to warm their feet. And then we can sit and reason together, just like the Lord did with me. He said, come and sit and reason together. Prepare for what's coming. You that are saved, you know you have a home in heaven. You have new bodies. If you're preparing just because you're worried about your flesh, that's not the right reason to prepare. You're preparing and taking steps so that you can give to those that are in need, not only their physical needs, but more important, their spiritual needs. You've got, as my pastor says, if I got 2 taters, I'm going to give one to you and I'll have one. Put up more than 2 taters and you can help more. Thank you for listening. And we'll come back at it and we'll go after the next 3 trumpets in the next video. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.